Good morning. I'm Paul Carruthers, and this is Off Track with Paul Carruthers and Sean Bice. If this is your first listen, I'm the communications manager for MotoAmerica, and we're the home of the AMA Superbike Series. Sean is my partner in crime, both here and when we meet up at the racetracks all across the country. So, Sean, talk to me a little bit. You're in Ohio.
I'm in Ohio. I just ate an apple, by the way. Do you know why I did that?
I don't know why you would eat an apple. To keep the
I
doctor away.
Well, that's one of the reasons. The other thing is, I in my background in advertising, I did a lot of radio spots, and I learned from a voice talent that we had that if you want to make sure that you sound your best, have an apple, because for some reason the pH of an apple it's astringent and it balances the pH in your mouth and it kind of lubricates your vocal cords. So supposedly that's the best way to sound the best.
It's
So
amazing the things I learned from you.
every week I'll have something like that.
I feel like I ate sandpaper. Is that as good as an apple?
or if you drank a bottle of Drano, I think that might work.
Jeez, man. Well, we can confess we've had a little technical difficulty getting this thing started today, and I don't know. It just always seems to be my freaking computer that f's up, and yeah. So anyhow, good thing we're not live because it took a while, but here we are.
I just want to stay one small step for Paul, one giant step for MotoAmerica.
Yeah, man, it's so frustrating. I almost smashed my computer against the wall. And then I thought that's not going to work any better if that happens. So I held back. But damn, this technology is really good, like all technology, until it isn't.
Right, exactly.
Anyhow, whew, I got to take a deep breath. Okay, let's get started here, Sean.
Sounds good.
What do you want to chat about? We've got we released our 2019 MotoAmerica calendar this week. And it's much the same as last year, which I think is a good thing. As I wrote in the press release, I think some stability is created by not only visiting the same events, but also visiting them at on the same weekends, or at least close to the same weekends, so that people can start to plan for these events and start to think, yeah, it's Road America time, first weekend in June. Let's make our camping reservation and let's get our tickets and we'll be at Road America the first weekend in June. I think we start to do a little bit more of that. I think we get consistent with it, and I think the fans would appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, muscle memory is so important in anything we do in life. But I mean, heck, I remember back in the days when we used to go to Loudon back then, and when I lived in New Hampshire at that time, you knew that Father's Day weekend was the weekend of the Loudon Classic, and it was part of tradition, and it's the same way with what we've been doing. I know, right from the beginning with Pittsburgh, we had a good following, and it's the same setup next year as it was last year, so we're going to get a lot of those fans from this area that are going to be out there in Pittsburgh, and same thing with all the venues we go to, certainly New Jersey. It's great to have the same 10 venues and same around. I think it seems like it's the same weekends for the most part. There is a little bit of a wrinkle this year, something that's interesting to talk about. And, I'm anxious to talk to you, Paul, because you have a little more information on this than me. But it's the fact that 4 of the rounds are going to be 2 days. So that's a nice change, I think, for the teams, because it's certainly going to save some money for these teams. Is that one of the reasons why it's being done?
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Obviously, if the teams like the MotoAmerica staff and even the fans, sometimes the expense of going somewhere for what turns into 4 or 5 days can be quite a lot. A lot of us, when you're on the outside looking in, you don't think about, how many hotel rooms these guys need and meal money and transportation costs. I think that, it obviously starts to add up, and it's a lot of money. And obviously if you can shorten that, the savings are there for everybody. I'm not sure that's the only reason, but I'm sure it's one of the reasons. I'm kind of excited about the 2-day schedule. I know AMA Pro did it back in the day. I say back in the day when I don't remember the dates. kind of works. You know, it's kind of like,
Right.
it's kind of like, to be perfectly honest, I guess. But
Well, I mean,
anyway,
back in the day, though, you know, they did race like Superbike was on Sunday, right? And a lot of times 600 or whatever was on Saturday. They only raced one race on a weekend. We are still going to have two races, I presume, for the two.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the schedule's pretty much all it's going to be. Is it really compacts everything. I think it'll, you know, I'm sure there's some crews and stuff that might, you know, have a bit of a complaint about it, because obviously their workload is smashed into a smaller time frame, as is ours. But I mean, it basically goes, you know, it'll be Saturday practice sessions for all the classes, and then, you know, a timed practice session for Superbike, and then Junior Cup, Super Sport, Superbike, time practice and qualifying mixed in. We'll still have a Super Pole on Saturday, and then we go right into races, you know, Junior Cup, Super Sport, Superbike. And then at the end of the day, we'll have, you know, Twins Cup practice, Stock 1000 practice, however that works. I mean, this isn't, don't quote me on
Right.
all this, because it's kind of a rough outline. And then Sunday, it'll just be warm ups, qualifying for Twin Cup and Stock 1000, lunch break, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 races right in a row. So actually 5 races right in a row. So it will, I mean, as a fan, I think it'd be kind of cool, because you know, it's just action, 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 action. You know, you'll take your break for lunch, and on a Sunday especially, and it'll just be bam, 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 one class out after another. And again, I mean, it's like we really wanted to keep the 3-day events, especially at the tracks that have a big camping following. I'd mentioned MotoAmerica, you know, a few minutes ago, and that's obviously one of our racetracks that a 3-day event works really well, because people do go there, and there's a lot of camping. You know, people bring their everything from their big RVs to tents, and you know, they're good to go, and they're there for the 3 days. I think at some of the other events, for the fans, they're really 2-day events anyway, because I don't know how many of them would actually how many of them actually come on a Friday, and the racing is Saturday and Sunday. So, you know, I don't know that it'll be too big of a change. It'll be some adjustment for the teams, and some adjustment for the riders, and some adjustment for, you know, our staff as well. But I think it'll be fun to try, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of response we get. And yeah, I hope it's favorable, and, you know, I'm pretty confident that it will be. So
Yeah, there were a few times. There were a few times this past year. I know we remarked on Fridays. You know, there was practice, and with Superbike especially, all of their practice sessions are timed, so they're sort of qualifying from the moment they get on the track. But on Fridays, there was no race, so Fridays always felt a little bit different anyway. Whereas this 2-day situation, we go, you're gonna see racing every day that we're there. So I think that's really cool for the fans. One question I have, so regarding the fact that, you know, in Superbike specifically, every time they were on the track, it was qualifying. Does it look like from the 2-day schedule, the moment they hit the track on Saturday morning, it's going to be a qualifying session in that first practice?
No, there's on the schedule I've got, and again, you don't hold us to, yeah, it's subject to change, obviously, as we feel this thing out. But I have a Superbike time practice session, and there's 2 of them before Super Pole.
Okay.
And then it goes into Super Pole, and then like I said, those 3 races right in a row before the practice sessions for the other 2 support classes.
You know, it's funny going to Supercross, and I know you go to a lot of them. Sometimes it takes me a little while to get used to the fact that it's a little bit sensory overload with that being all in one day. It's a crazy thing, one right after another. And I have a good friend that works in motocross for one of the OEMs, and he always jokes about how our road racing goes on for, like, you know, a protracted several days, and he can't understand. He's like, "What do you guys do over all that time?" Well, obviously there's a lot more going on, and you know, there's more practice sessions and qualifying and things like that. We don't have heats and semis and everything like that as well, but we certainly, it's chock full of activity on a 3-day event as well. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, like you said, it'll be a little bit of a learning curve for the teams that are going to have to deal with it, but it certainly makes it exciting for everybody. Everybody will be on their toes, including the fans. So you can come on Saturday and see a race, which, you know, If you came on Friday well, I guess you'd always come on Saturday, but like last year, and I shouldn't say last year, I should say at the 3-day events, you'll still be able to come on Friday, watch qualifying, and then look forward to the race on Saturday. So a lot of it's similar, seems like.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously there's probably, well, there is some less track time for everybody.
Right.
So they will have to be a little bit more on their toes, but it's the same for everybody. It's not like anybody's going to gain an advantage over that.
Right. Right. And Twins Cup will be on Saturday, one race, and Stock 1000 will be on Sunday, one race, just like it was last year. I sure that's the case.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend, because at some of the events, there's events, some of those classes will race twice.
Right.
So I don't want to be quoted exactly on how that's going to play out yet, as far as which classes are going to race on which days. But
okay, and we know at COTA, for instance, Circuit of the Americas, when we're there with MotoGP, it's a Superbike only event like it was last year. So that's the same, correct?
Yes, and then obviously the other items of note are the fact that we're going to use the East Course at Utah Motorsports campus, which we also had in the news this week that track was sold. So I think there'll be some more stability there with new ownership, which is always a good thing. But yeah, we're moving our race to the shorter course, which is the East Course. Last year, I think I know we used that big course. Our people seem to think that, maybe that brings the action a little closer. That track, I mean, that straightaway is so long, they disappear for a long time. They go way out in the back, and it's difficult to see from the main spectator area. So I think having the shorter track, using that East Course where it's closer to where the main spectator areas are, it might make it a little bit more enjoyable for the fans.
Yeah, I know. I think it was 13. It was before MotoAmerica that one year that they did the 3-round Superbike shootout, and I'm pretty sure we were on the East Course for that. That year we went when it was Miller Motorsports Park back then. But it was the same thing, and the reason for that was the same. It was closer to the fans and a little bit better for them to see. And both those courses are challenging and interesting courses anyway. And there's certainly enough. It's a long enough distance where it's pretty. It's going to be a challenging event. So I'm glad to hear that. And also good news about Utah Motorsports Campus getting through what they needed to be strong going forward. So that's awesome. Awesome news.
Yeah, and then the other big news, at least internationally, is the fact that World Superbike won't be going to Laguna Seca, which is WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. That's a big change, because I know that's one of the favorites for the World Superbike guys. But I'm happy to report that MotoAmerica will be there, and will be a standalone. Will be the main show. I always like when we join Dorna events such as the MotoGP in Austin and also World Superbike at Laguna Seca. But I also I believe that we can put on a good show, and I know there's big plans to make that a real motorcycle weekend, with a lot of things that we have planned other than just the races. So I think it'll be, I think we can go up there and we can put on an event that won't miss a beat. Obviously the World Superbike guys won't be there, but I think in the past our racing's proved to be a little bit better than theirs anyway.
Yeah. I'm actually looking forward to what they're doing to set up there. I know one of the things that it was a scheduling thing for me. I mean, living in Ohio and having AMA Vintage Motorcycle Days at Mid-Ohio, not too far from where I live, it has been the same weekend as we go to Laguna Seca. So I've always had to miss that event. But they're going to have like a vintage bike auction and things that relate to vintage racing at our event at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. So I'm really excited about that. It's sort of, I'm going to be able to have both. I'm going to be able to partake in the vintage side of things and also our sport in the same place. And there's really no better place to do it than the Monterey Peninsula. I mean, the turnout is always great with bikes, and I'm sure that there will be a lot of bikes at Cannery Row at night, and we'll have the same celebration. There's no doubt about it. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think we can create a similar vibe, and actually, I think we can make some improvements on it. And I know that I've seen the laundry list of things that Wayne and Chuck and the other partners, Richard and Terry, have thrown out there for, some ideas on different things that we can do with that event. And I mean, if we can pull off half of that list, it'll be quite the weekend. So I'm confident that things will go as planned, and Laguna Seca will be as it always is, which is one of the fan favorites on the series.
Do you have any insight into what happened with World Superbike? I mean, I didn't really feel any indication when we were there this past year that World Superbike wasn't going to be back. And the other thing that's odd is that they've already mentioned that that World Superbike will be back. They didn't really say back at Laguna Seca, but back in the U.S. in 2020. So it's odd that they're taking a year off. I don't really understand that.
Yeah, I know they're doing a South African round. I don't know. I really don't know who's that?
Sorry,
is that the president calling you? It better be.
I don't know why I didn't have it on silence. Yeah,
because you're an idiot.
Oh man, believe me, that wasn't any kind of warning that this segment was over or anything.
I can take it as such, but yeah, back to the World Superbike thing. I just I'm not privy to that information, so I don't know what happened there. I think Laguna Seca, would probably like to have him back, and again, I think Laguna Seca has always been one of Dorna's favorites between MotoGP and World Superbike going there. So I wouldn't be surprised if they end up going back. But you know what? That's not our concern. Our concern is building the best event we can at Laguna this year, and I think along with the staff at Laguna Seca, we'll be able to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's great when we go to COTA and we have MotoGP there. Certainly we like that. But I mean, I think if we had our druthers, we kind of like to have the paddock all to ourselves anyway. So it's a little bit easier to get around. You don't have to deal with credential issues here and there. And I mean, I think even for the fans, they're not sure where they can go and where they can't go. So where they can and can't go. So it'll be interesting to see at Laguna Seca. The access will probably be a little bit better. I really look forward to it. I especially that time of year. It's perfect. And then, there will be a little bit of break, but then we're right back at it at Sonoma, and about a month after that. And Sonoma is a terrific round to go to as well. So, it's good to have those two West Coast rounds to get that level of fan. I know I've heard and heard that there was talk about maybe adding another West Coast round. Didn't happen this year, but we've got all the ones that we had before. So that's terrific. Nobody's dropped off the calendar.
Yeah, I think it's the stability, as I mentioned before, is good. I think we would like to add rounds, but sometimes it's there's a lot of teams that probably don't want any more rounds because of the cost, and they like the 10-round schedule. So I think we'll continue to tinker with it as we move forward. But again, having the stability of the same events that people can start to count on, I think is a pretty solid deal.
Yeah, and to finish up again at Barber, I mean, that's terrific. I don't know if it was any cooler when we were there later in the year than we had been when we went this year at the end of the year, but we'll be there at the end of September next year. And, that's just a fantastic place with the museum and the way that's, the grounds are there. And it's just nice to be able to go there and wrap everything up. So, I love that that's at the end of the calendar as well. So.
Yeah, I think that's been good that we moved that to the end. It's like you said, it's a beautiful place, and it's a good place to end the championship. The racing's always good there, and it's safe, and we get a good fan turnout. I think we're blessed with all the tracks that we have, really, because I think we have the cream of the crop as far as racetracks in the country go. You know what I like? I mean, they all have kind of a different feel to them. They're not these cookie cutter racetracks where they're easily confused. They each stand out by themselves for various reasons. Road Atlanta, where we start. I mean, I saw this week that they've actually torn down the old, building that housed the announcers and the media room. And I mean, that thing, man, talk about something that needed to be taken down. It's, I'm not going to shed a tear, even though I spent many a late night in that building. I remember the first year we went there, it poured rain I think the entire time. And when I got to the media center to set it up on Thursday, there was actually that red mud coming through the back door, like sliding under the door. And I remember
Like the
like finding,
blob.
yeah, exactly. And I remember getting the biggest broom I could and just like pushing the mud back and pushing the mud back. And I think they finally brought sandbags or something, but it definitely had some character. And I mean, I can't remember that building ever not being there. I can't remember how old they said it was, but I mean, I went to that racetrack, believe it or not, for the first time in 1971.
Wow. That's
I think that was my dad's first national victory, which is, didn't have Superbike then. They had kind of an open thing. He raced a 350 Yamaha, and there were, 3-cylinder Triumphs and BSAs and Hondas, and it was kind of the heyday there of motorcycle road racing in the early 1970s. And I was there, so I was 10 years old or whatever, and I can't remember if that building was there, but I'm sure it was.
Did your dad like that track a lot?
Oh, he loved it.
Yeah.
That was his favorite track in America. So, and it was it was cool.
A lot of the riders say that. I mean, the elevation change, and I know they've changed the configuration a little bit over the years. They've changed what turn 12, that last turn, is a little different than it was, the approach and everything now. But it seems like regardless of what they've done to change it, there's the right riders seem to absolutely love that place. So it's a cool way to start out the season, no doubt.
I think it's a real rider's track, and
Mm-hmm.
and I think my dad liked it because it was probably the first track that he raced on in the U.S. that kind of had a more of a European feel to it.
Oh, okay, that's a good perspective on it.
So he probably felt more at home.
The one thing I did love about that old media center, though, is it's one of the best in terms of being able to see the track from where you are. Some of these media centers are not right there, like overlooking the front straight or anything. That one is that way, and I assume if they're tearing down the old building and putting a new facility right in the same spot, is that correct?
That's what I would think would be what they're going to do, because obviously they're knocking it down for a reason, and that's to build something nicer. So I'd imagine it would be in the same spot, which will give us the same view. And you're right. I mean, it's one of the best ones we go to as far as the location of the media center. So I'm sure it'll be in the same spot.
Yeah, seeing him coming down the hill there is really, really terrific, and onto that front straightaway. So, yeah, that's going to be good. I like that we start there. It's early days in terms of the spring, even in Georgia, so that's a little bit tricky sometimes. But it's a great way to start the season, and I know that track is used a lot by Weir and in car racing as well. So it's a very active facility. I'm glad that we're able to continue to be there.
And I liked starting there last year more than starting at COTA.
Yeah.
And that's nothing against COTA. I just thought it was good to get our first race under our belt when it was just us before making that trek and joining MotoGP at COTA. I just thought I think it was nice to just get everybody together again. And then obviously when we went to COTA, we don't bring the other classes, but at least we got everybody together for that first one. And then we met back up with them again at VIR. I don't know. It just had a better feel to it to me than starting our series with just the one class, or what's been in the past. I guess we've also had Supersport there. I was happy to start with just a MotoAmerica only event.
Yeah, I mean, a fair number of teams and even riders are in that area, so it's kind of nice for them that they get to kind of start at their home track and begin the season that way. So that's real good to have. It's a little bit of a far distance for you guys on the West Coast to start out. The first thing you have to go clear across the other coast. And, do you ever have an issue when you go from Pacific to East, or the time zones to, does it ever mess you up in terms of getting up in the morning, or, sleeping, or anything with scheduling? Does that ever bother you?
No, I'm pretty good about sleeping on the plane.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I usually leave here. It's early in the morning. And I get on the plane, and I find airplanes really relaxing. It's like really the only time, at least if you make it that way, that you're kind of out of communication. You don't get bothered. So I take that time to get some rest and get some sleep and take a nap and maybe watch a movie or read some book or whatever. But the only part that I struggle with is sometimes that first night there, I toss and turn a bit, and it's hard to get some sleep because of the time change. But then the next night, I'm totally exhausted and back to normal. And then coming back here, it just makes me go to bed even earlier, which is okay.
I don't know how you guys do it. I mean, I know that you're usually there when I walk in to the media center in the morning, and you always kind of give me a little smirk because I'm not much of a morning person. But I do love when we hit those West Coast rounds, and I get that benefit of getting up a little earlier, and it feels like, oh, it's the middle of the day, just like I like, and I'm going to the track. So
You do show up a little bit late. You're lucky we don't get paid by the hour.
I know if we had to punch a time clock, I'd be in trouble probably for sure. I'd get
Wow.
I'd be tardy.
I could punch yours for you in the morning. No, I'm lucky that I wake up early. I kind of always have. Even as a teenager, I was one of those rare teenagers that didn't sleep in. I remember, if we'd sleep over at somebody's house or whatever, I'd be up in the kitchen, with the mom making breakfast or something because, while they slept. I just have never been one to sleep in very much. But I don't know. It works out well that early bird gets the worm kind of a thing,
Yeah, it's true. I do miss a few things sometimes when I get there late. So I gotta change my ways a little bit. But let's talk about Sonoma Raceway a little bit. So that's after that little bit of time off after Laguna. And when we go to Sonoma, it feels like the second half of the season, and it's a great place to go to kind of kickstart the season back into gear again. Do you agree with that? I mean, the fact that we have a pretty good following there.
Yeah, I've always liked Sonoma. It's in a nice part of the country. There's a lot of motorcycle road racing fans up that way. The people at the track are outstanding. They're wonderful hosts. And it's one of my favorites, and I was really happy that we were able to bring that back and put that on the schedule because again, it sort of ticks all the boxes as far as it's a nice destination for our fans to go to. The track's good. The viewing there is incredible. I remember, sometimes I kind of get stuck in the paddock and the media center at these races, and this year, I really actually, Wayne kind of was the one that kind of gave me a little push on it. He said, because he goes out on his scooter and he tries to he's funny because he goes out, he mingles with the fans. He asks them questions, what they like, what they don't like.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still very much in tune with how the motorcycles work and the way different riders attack different corners. And I think he likes to go out there and study because I think he can actually tell you a lot if you go with him as to why somebody's doing what they're doing. But I went out with him I grabbed a scooter and we did like an entire lap of the track on the outside and we were able to sample all the viewing areas. And it's even better than what you can imagine because it's just kind of got a natural flow to it where it's in that kind of a valley and there's lots of, spectator areas that are raised up and built into the hillside instead of just your normal grandstand. So it's got a nice feeling to it. And there's a lot of campers back there in the top section. And we were able to do that lap, but that kind of really, it reinforced to me, how nice that racetrack is and how important it is for us to have that on the schedule.
So I got to tell you a quick story here about Sonoma Raceway. Do you know about, I think it was 1971 when that track first opened. Do you know the origins of that track, Paul?
I do not, and I have a distinct feeling I'm about to find out.
I love to tell this story. One of my all-time favorite movies ever is a movie called Little Foss and Big Halsey. Have you ever heard of it?
Yes, I've seen it. Oh, yeah.
So Robert Redford's in it, and I mean, Lauren Hutton is in it, and there's a particular scene with Lauren Hutton in the middle of it that's definitely worth watching. Let me just say, but I love the fact that Robert Redford is a guy from Oklahoma who is somewhat of a ne'er-do-well, but he's a racer and he gets involved with another racer in that area, and they decide that they're going to go out to what was called at the time Sears Point. And it's just a great tale, kind of a buddy film, but a great tale about back in those days when you'd load up a van with a couple of bikes and go out and race a national. And the movie was filmed during, I think, one of the first nationals that was held there. And I don't know, was your dad racing in the U.S. in 71?
I don't. Yeah, we raced it. Yeah, 71. But I don't. I don't think Sears Point. Well, what was Sears Point? I don't think Sears Point was on the schedule then.
Maybe it was a club
I
race
don't
or
because I
something.
don't think my dad ever raced there.
They built that track in order to film that movie, and then that's the origin of that track. It was owned by Universal Studios back in the day, and it's amazing that they created that movie out of that. So in the scenes, you can see the tarmac is fresh, recently put down. And Robert Redford races it's like a TR3 or some kind of two-stroke Yamaha that I'm sure is what your dad was racing back during that time period too. But it's just so fascinating to watch it and to see, the topography is obviously the same. And it's just amazing that a production company from down in Hollywood or whatever went up there to Northern California and found this spot and built this racetrack, which, now years later is still, a solid track and is used by everybody and people love it. So, but for the listeners, if you get a chance to see Little Foss and Big Halsey, you have to see it. It's just a fantastic movie because it just has that feel. It's kind of got that On Any Sunday feel a little bit to it, but it's definitely a story about a racer that, kind of makes it big at the end and races at that track. So I highly
Yeah, I
recommend
need to
it.
see it again.
Yeah, I have it on a couple different versions. I still have a VHS of it somewhere, but I finally
You
found
have a
it.
VHS,
I have a VHS version of it,
but you don't have the actual machine anymore, do you?
no, I finally got rid of that. But I do have.
Yeah.
I have so many VHS tapes of GP races that Wayne was in, and I mean, they're probably that stuff deteriorates over years. One of these days, I've got to take that stuff and get it all digitized onto compact disc, but or DVD, I should say. But I do have Little Foss and Big Halsey on DVD now, so it's just a fantastic
Oh, you'll
movie.
have to. Hey, that would be perfect at one of these races where I can't sleep. You could bring that for me. I could watch it on my laptop.
We should do
Oh,
like
actually, you know what? I don't think this laptop even has a DVD drive anymore. So maybe I could Netflix or something.
what we need to do is when we go to Road America this year, I'll have to remember this and remind me about it. But you remember when we were having a late night in the media center at Road America, and John Everett, the media relations guy, had a movie playing, and at one point I looked up and I said, "Hey, is that Days of Thunder?" And he started laughing. I didn't know what he was talking about, but apparently he always puts it on when media people are in there, and the first person that notices what it is usually asks that question, "Hey, is that Days of Thunder?" And they all have a big kick out of it. But we could play Little Foss and Big Halsey at Road America. That'd be pretty good while we're doing our press release.
Maybe I think that's kind of a tradition of what he's got going there, but we might be able to break tradition and I bet that's something he's never seen, by the way. So it'd be kind of funny to have that. It'd be kind of funny to have that on. And in fact, that media center. I mean, there's a few of us that have been doing this for a long time, so we're a little bit older. But it's amazing to me sometimes when we get some of these kids in there, and we can have a good time with them. Like our guy Doug, who helps us actually with this podcast. It's fun to see that they don't really know what that older stuff is. And if you put something like that on the TV, they'd be like, "What the?"
Yeah.
Anyhow, it is in color, so that might help.
That's true. Yeah, it's like all of my jokes now. I mean, everything I say is a reference to some kind of popular culture. Only it's become unpopular culture because it's from 2 decades ago. So nobody understands my references anymore to the Brady Bunch or the Partridge Family. I can sometimes get Seinfeld references in there, and people know what I'm talking about, but it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean,
too often.
Seinfeld's about as far as they go back.
Right.
And now when I say something funny, it's like, oh, that's a dad joke. I'm like,
Yeah.
what does that even mean?
Yeah, but the thing is, you've got the dad jokes. I've got the dad jokes and the dad bod. So I'm complete
Yeah.
dad. I'm complete dad all the way through. So
If I keep going the way I'm going now, I'll have the dad bod as well.
like Josh Hayes now that he's not riding his bike every day or something. So
There you go.
hey, I gotta depart from the conversation a little bit. I gotta talk to you about this. So Josh stirred up a little bit of a hornet's nest last week when he was talking about Twins Cup. I think some of the guys may have reached out to you too, but I heard from Chris Turner, I heard from Rob McClendon, and I think they want to have their side of the story regarding what they think of Twins Cup. And I don't think Josh said anything wrong, but I think he made some reference to the fact that we don't have to have motorcycles circulating around the entire weekend, which made it sound like, wow, we don't need those guys out there. So it was a surprising reaction from Josh, but the Twins Cup guys, they all say they still love the guy, but they definitely want to get on and tell their side of it. Did any of them reach out to you?
No, nobody did. In fact, I didn't know that they were upset until you told me. But when those words were coming out of his mouth, all I could think to myself was, God, I'm so freaking glad that wasn't me who said that, because then they would be all over me. And obviously, I'm in a little different situation than Josh is, because I'm the communications manager for MotoAmerica, so I have to love everybody no matter what, and for the most part I do, and if I don't, I can fake it. But when Josh said that, I was like, ugh, glad that wasn't me.
Well, it's funny because I mean, pretty much everybody loves Josh too, so they do couch it by saying, oh, Josh is awesome, but we want to definitely argue his points a little bit. So that's good. I was glad he had it. I guess there's a whole thing on the Weir board about everybody debating the pros and cons of the Twins Cup class or whatever. So
I've always made it a point, especially, this goes back a long ways, because when I was at Cycle News, I made a point of never going on those chat rooms.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I just didn't want to see, I guess my skin wasn't thick enough to read bad things about Cycle News or about me or about whatever. So I've always stayed away, which I'm kind of glad I have, but I do miss out on some of that stuff. But you know what? If there's anything on there that I should know about, somebody usually tells me.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about it. I know I'll always tell you, because I have an overwhelming sense of justice with everything, and that's a good way to put that. I do get my feathers ruffled pretty easily, so I have to be careful sometimes, because who you represent or whatever. That's why it always cracks me up, these people on Twitter who say, my opinions are my own. Well, they're your own until the company you work for decides that they're going to fire you because of your opinions that are your own. So it doesn't always work.
No, what happens is they're your opinions, especially after you've been fired, because nobody else wants them. And you know what? When you've been fired, you're truly on your own.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Your opinions are, and they're not even probably your wife or significant others, because they're probably not wanting to be part of that either anymore. So
no, they'll disown you quickly as well.
You went and did it again. That's exactly. So let's talk about Pittsburgh a little bit on the schedule. That's August 23rd to 25th. So that's after Sonoma. And, that thing from the very first event we had there, which was 2 years ago, fantastic. I mean, it seemed like a lot of the people, the Mid-Ohio fans and the rabid motorcycle fans from Ohio, as well as certainly that area of Pennsylvania and all parts of Pennsylvania, as well as, New York, West Virginia, everybody seemed to embrace that track and that facility from the beginning. And I think it was even better last year, and probably, have a better attendance this coming year. I mean, were you surprised that one picked up such momentum so quickly, I guess?
Going into the first one, I didn't know what to expect. But once I got to the facility, I was like, oh, next year is just going to be, it'll even be better, because it's one of those places that if you go to, you're not only going to enjoy yourself, but you're going to enjoy yourself enough that you tell your buddies to go next year. And that's one of those tracks, kind of like we were just talking about Sonoma. It's got that natural viewing area where, you're kind of sitting on a hillside and it's green grass, and the track, it's just got some soul to it. It's got, again, the track flows well. The riders like the track, and there's that good natural viewing area where you're, kind of up on a hill looking down, and it's definitely got a good feel. So I was surprised the first year because I hadn't been there, so I didn't know what to expect, and I knew that the most of the fans hadn't been there either. The second year I wasn't surprised because I just knew that people would go back and bring friends with them, and I think that's one of those events that will just continue to grow because there's not much to dislike about the racetrack or the area that it's in.
Yeah, it's really great. I got a kick out of Sean Unvarsky last year. We were talking to him. I think it was at Sonoma. Well, it was at Sonoma. It was the round before Pittsburgh. And I got talking to him about the next round. And he just, he all of a sudden just stopped and had this look on his face. I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "I cannot wait to get to Pittsburgh. I love that track so much." And the guy lives in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. What a complete difference for him. But he, like you said, the riders just love the way the layout is, and he just couldn't stop talking about that track and how much he loved being there. And I think for I've seen this with Cameron Bobier too. For guys that live in the West Coast or in more arid climates like you guys do, when you come east, and tell me if this is true, Paul, when you come east that time of year, and there's still so much green in this area, Ohio or the Midwest or East Coast, do you notice it? And is it something you're like, wow, this is really just a nice place to be? It's so green. Do you feel that?
Yeah, you definitely notice that because, it, especially, well, in Northern California as well, but it's in Southern California, we get in those hot summer months. This place, we can get a ton of rain in the winter and it can be green as can be, but 3 weeks later, it's back to being, yellow or whatever dirt color is.
Right.
So yeah, so you go back east and, it's just, there's a lot of green, but there's a lot of trees and it's just a lot different look to it than what we have out here. So it's always enjoyable to me to get back there and see everything's different, really. I mean, the people are a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
The area in which they live is a little different. I like driving through the drive to VIR from, God, where do I fly into for VIR?
Well, it's either Greensboro or Raleigh, one of the two. That's where we usually go.
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, that drive to VIR is like incredible. Because from being where I'm from, you're just not used to seeing big farmland and these well manicured. I mean, I would give anything to be able to mow a lawn that big because I have this thing where I like to mow lawns. And the lines have to be perfectly straight. And sometimes I do it diagonally. So it makes it look like the outfield at a baseball stadium, ballpark. So I really appreciate all that lawn. And then I'm like, God, I want to live here. And then something in my brain triggers, you need to come back here in January before you make that decision.
Right.
And then obviously it would change because, I don't know, Southern California is just always, for the most part, once we came here from Europe, has always been home. So it just feels natural.
Yeah.
But it is nice to visit those other spots just to see how people live and also to see how green it is in the summer.
Yeah, you mentioned VIR and going to the track. The thing that cracks me up about that, other than the Virginia's for Lovers sign, is the fact that you see "Welcome to Virginia" about 4 times on the way, because somehow you go from North Carolina to Virginia, back to North Carolina to Virginia again 3 or 4 times before you get to the track. I don't understand what the border is.
I know, it's
there.
crazy. The first time I went there, that drive from the airport towards the end when you're going through that farmland I talked about, there's no cell service for a while.
Yeah.
So I was like, I sort of lost my ability to navigate on my phone because now we're all so used to that we forget how to actually use a map or even know how to find one. But I felt like I was lost the entire time. And then I kept seeing these signs like, oh, welcome to Virginia. Oh, welcome to Virginia. Welcome to Virginia. And it was like, holy crap, what's going on here? It was like the Twilight Zone. But I didn't see a welcome to Arizona or anything. So I figured I was close.
Yeah, I don't know why it keeps going in and out. That border must be really, really waver back and forth somehow or something. And then
I got a little story for you.
Okay.
Before these phones had, it was before even cell phones. That's how old I am. But I flew into Atlanta to go to Road Atlanta, and somehow I went south instead of north. And I ended up in Alabama, correct?
Yeah, that'd be right. Yep.
Yeah, so I ended up in Alabama and then realized I was probably now 3 hours out of my way. So anyway, that's my story about getting lost.
You probably went south. I think it might be southwest a little bit because I think Florida is south of Georgia. But, since Road Atlanta is in northern Georgia, there's a part there where, if you can almost go south and end up in Alabama. It is kind of different. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, even after going, and we talk about the fact that, we're continually going to the same places and building up a good sort of muscle memory for fans and for us too. I mean, at this point, I think we we seem to stay in the same hotels and the direction of the track. But I still rely on that navigation. I mean, I have to have that lady tell me where to go all the time. I think it's just because I like to have ladies tell me where to go. I'm used to it with my wife, so.
Well, yeah, it makes you. Yeah, it's another woman telling you what to do.
Yeah, and I'm fine with it. It's like, okay, I'm sorry, honey. Yes, I will go this way. It's no problem. So, um, uh, so one of the rounds we didn't talk about before the last round at Barber, our second to the last round, our penultimate round, as they say, is New Jersey Motorsports Park. Another favorite among fans and us as well. It's a great track to be, and that has a huge following too. That one is one of the ones that is a 2-day event. So for the fans out there who are a lot of Eagles fans and football is back in session, they can concentrate on just Saturday and, screw the Eagles on Sunday. Don't worry about that. Just come to the track. So, New Jersey's a good one.
And then that's always the weekend that the NFL kicks off, right? Because it always seems like that Thursday night's the first game of the year that we somehow find our way to Bennigan's or whatever that place is by the hotel there to watch the first NFL game. So
right, in this past,
I haven't looked, but I imagine it's the same.
Yeah, in this past year, because the Eagles had won the Super Bowl, their game was on Thursday night. So yeah, so it was great. None of those Eagles fans had to miss the Eagles, so they could come to watch the racing at New Jersey Motorsports Park. But that's another good one too. That layout of that track is really nice, and I got to take my first 2-seater ride ever this year at that track. So that one is definitely fond. I'm fond of that one, I should say. So
yeah, that you came out of that acting like you weren't scared, but I know you were.
Well, the funny thing was, I think I was set up. I was possibly going to do it at Pittsburgh, and I legitimately had a reason why scheduling I couldn't do it, because I had promised to help out with some video stuff or whatever. And, David Swartz and Chris and even you were kind of acting like I was chickening out of it. And I still maintain I was not. So I would have liked to have done it at Pittsburgh, but, I'm glad I did get to do it at Barber, but at New Jersey. But like I said, after I got off the bike, after two circulations of that track, I had bad arm pump. I needed to have the surgery done. I don't know how those guys do that for whatever it is, 23 laps or something, because when Chris was going into those braking zones and I was holding on to the little handles on the front of that gas tank, I mean, I was holding myself back. My considerable mass, I didn't want to go plowing into the back of Chris. So I was doing everything I could to hold myself back. And yeah, I definitely felt it in the forearms when I got done. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a scary deal. I haven't done it with Chris yet, and Chris, by the way, is going to be Chris Orch is going to be one of our guests here shortly. He may be in as early as next week, so it'll be interesting to talk to him about the 2-seater program as well as the M4 team. But yeah, I did my 2-up ride actually at MotoGP at Laguna Seca, and I did it with Randy Mamola on the Ducati MotoGP bike. Wow. And I mean, I was. Yeah, it was scary. I mean, I could sit here and lie and say, "Oh yeah, it was nothing," but I mean, I knew they're obviously a little more strict than we are, but I actually had to go into the clinic mobile and have like a physical before they would allow me to do that. That's when I thought, man, this is kind of serious.
Wow.
And one guy who was supposed to go with us, I guess his heart rate was too high. He was scared already, but they didn't allow him to actually go on the deal. So I thought, wow, man, this is pretty serious. This might scare me, and it did. I've known Randy Mamola since we were both little kids, and so I think he, it felt the need to scare me even more than he would, the guy off the street. But yeah, we did 2 laps of Laguna, and when I got off that bike, I was, I was definitely ready. And then people are like, "Oh, would you do that again?" And, I wanted to say, yeah, but I was like, nah, I think I'm good.
What was the handhold situation on that bike? Did you reach around, Randy, and was it something attached to the tank like it is on the bike that they use, the Suzuki that they used with Chris?
Yes. I hate to say this, but yes, I did the reach around with Randy. I did the reach around with Randy and was holding on to really small handles. How's that?
Well, he did race on a world level, so I think you could do the reach around with worse people than Randy Mamola. And just with some of the crazy things he did, being the clown prince of the paddock, that's probably
Oh man,
pretty
we could
perfect.
spend an entire show talking about Randy Mamola, but anyway, go ahead.
I was just
No, you go.
I was just going to say, I wish that, it was great when we had Dakota in the paddock. I wish he would come back to MotoAmerica to race, because he's a really good kid. It's Randy raised a good son there for sure, and he's a good guy, good racer. So go ahead.
Yeah, he was. I really liked having him in our series because, as you said, he's a really good kid, and I still follow him on Instagram and stuff because he's always up to something, and I've always liked Randy and the mom, and it gave us an opportunity to see them quite a bit. Whereas now I see him at COTA, and that's about it.
Right.
But yeah, I wish that would have worked out where he could have stuck around and we could have had the Mamolas, with us on a more regular basis because they're good people. But yeah, that Randy's. The thing is with him, he's like, he's always been a nut job.
Yeah.
But he never really grew out of it. So I think he's as nutty now as he was when he was 20 years old. And God, I've got some stories about us that I'll have to share sometime, probably not on here, but when I was 18 and did a summer in Europe doing the Grand Prix when my dad worked for Kenny Robertson and Randy was there. I think it was his first year, and the stuff that him and I got into was I'm glad we survived it. But yeah, he's a good kid or good old man at this point. But
are you guys?
Yeah, it was nice having the Mamolas.
You guys pretty close to the same age?
I think so. Yeah. I think he's probably a year older, maybe.
Okay. I know he's a couple years older than Wayne, so I wasn't sure.
Oh yeah, then Wayne's like 6 months older than me. So
okay.
If he's a couple years older than Wayne, then he's a couple of years and 6 months older than me. So
a couple years younger, I think he was than Wayne. I'm pretty sure.
He's younger.
I might be wrong about that. They were pretty close to being the same age, but I know Wayne was born in 1960 for sure. So I think Randy, maybe he was old. Maybe he is a little bit older than that. But I'm getting hung up in the minutia right now, so we won't worry about that. What else were you going to say before I started talking about Dakota?
What was I going to say? Oh, I got to spend a little time on a motorcycle this week, which is unfortunately sort of rare for me. Ever since I started, obviously when I was at Cycle News, I got to ride quite a bit because, I did a lot of the testing and stuff. But ever since I started at MotoAmerica, I've had the opportunity to ride little dirt trackers and things like that. But I haven't been able to spend much time on a street bike. And I was forced into it this week when the transmission in my truck sort of disintegrated. To the point where I actually just sold it to the mechanic for $1,000 rather than trying to even pour the money in to fix it because it wasn't going to be worth as much as I was going to spend. But so I was able to borrow a friend's Ducati 949. Oh. And so I commuted to work a few days on that. And I think a couple more commutes, and Yosh might be looking at me for that second ride. But I'm going to go pick up my new used vehicle today, and I'll be back in the car. But it was kind of nice to get on that Ducati and ride to work a couple of days. It made me want to go do track days and that sort of stuff all over again. So that's something I need to work on doing. How
is the commute when you come in? Is there a lot of traffic? Is it curvy roads? I mean, what was it like when you were on the bike?
I did a couple of different ways. I wanted to do I did PCH one day, which was a lot of stop and go in traffic. Mm-hmm. And that clutch can be a little difficult when on a Ducati, but yeah, once I got used to it, it was fine. And then another day I did the freeway, so I kind of mixed it up a little bit, but no, it was good. I really enjoyed it, and obviously the weather was good enough that I didn't be all bundled up or anything. So no, it was a pleasure to get on the motorcycle and kind of give myself a little adrenaline rush again.
I had to laugh because this week we did, on Mondays, we generally send out a social media post about Merchandise Monday, and we talk about, what's available through the website, hats and shirts with MotoAmerica branded apparel and swag. And, where I am, I wanted to mention, it's kind of jacket weather now, so, you might want to pick up a jacket. And we had a couple of comments on the post where they're like, What are you talking about? It's 90 degrees here. Now, obviously, that must have been people in California, but has it been in the 90s out there? I mean, do you guys not need jackets still?
We don't need jackets yet, but it's not in the 90s, but I mean, it's actually been perfect. It's like high 70s, low 80s.
Yeah.
And it's got that fall feeling to the air. I mean, as much as we get that, but I can always tell the difference between like summer and fall because I don't know, just there's a little more dew in the air and stuff like that, especially in the mornings.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. There hasn't been any 90 degrees. But you know what? If you drive an hour from here, you're at 90 degrees because you go right out to Palm Springs.
Okay.
So
But I was thinking,
I don't know where those.
I was thinking about the guy. I was like, I don't know where the guy is, but give me a break. I mean, the majority of the country has moved, through the late part of fall. The clock's changed. So we're getting close to Thanksgiving and Christmas. I mean, it is jacket weather, even almost no matter where you are. The weather does change a little bit. So I don't know.
Well, you got to remember, if you live out here, nothing else exists.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah.
I mean, the last thing worth doing is thinking about you being cold.
Right. Did you guys have...
back to my car story.
Yeah.
This shows what a small world it is. But do you remember a motorcycle racer named David Stanton?
Oh, I love Dave Stanton. He's awesome.
Great awesome guy.
Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
anyways, so Wayne, when I ran into all these first world problems with my car breaking down, Wayne said, "Hey, if you're looking for a used car, call Dave Stanton because he's a broker. You tell him what you want and he finds it."
I didn't know that. Wow.
So yeah, so it was nice. I got in touch with David and I told him exactly what he wanted, and a few days later he'd found it for me. So
that's awesome.
If you're ever in the need to buy a used car, Dave Stanton's your man.
I think he was at Sonoma, wasn't he, this year?
Yeah. We always see him there. So
yeah,
he is a good guy, and I remember him racing, and I remember him actually. I'm always reminded of him. When we go to Sonoma because he had such good success there. So
yeah, Suzuki rider, wasn't he?
Yes,
that's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he spent some time with Orch's team and bounced around a little bit, but he was one of those like Northern California fast guys that you could always count on going well at Sears Point.
That's cool. Hey, Paul,
and he was great to work with. So
yeah. So I had to, let's see. Yesterday I think it was the day before. It was vote. Did you vote this week?
I did not.
Thanks for asking. Well, you didn't have to be necessarily honest.
Well, okay. Yes, Sean, I did.
Well, it is the quote midterm election, so it wasn't like the big voting. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I was just curious because I had talked to my mom. I talked to my mom this week, and she emailed me and said, "Did you vote?" And she asked me on Monday, and they live in New York State, and I was like, "What planet do you live on?" But apparently they voted early because, my mom and dad are elderly, and my mom works at the polls all day on Tuesday. But yeah, I mean, I did my part. I went in and I just skipped some of them. I mean, some of them I feel like if I don't know who it is or what it's about, I'm not going to throw my vote one way or the other. And I've heard people say, well, when you don't vote for somebody, you're voting for the other person. And I don't really get that. Does that mean
in my defense,
okay,
which I don't know how big that fence is at this point, but in my defense, I don't want to be an uninformed voter, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
So I honestly ran out of time. I ran out of time and didn't have the time I needed to study what I needed to study in order to make an informed decision on some of the things. And I'm not the type of guy that gets the Republican or the Democrat mailings and just, okay, they say vote yes on 9, vote no on this. But I don't want to do it that way. I'd rather be more informed and make informed decisions on my own rather than somebody else telling me what I should be doing. That being said, I didn't spend the time to do that, and in turn I didn't vote, so you can go ahead and send me a bunch of bad emails and tell me what a jerk up. And also remember, I've only been a citizen a few years, so I mean this is sort of new to me. That's not good defense either, but
you are a U.S. citizen.
I am a dual citizen at this point. I have U.S. and Australian citizenship. prior to that, which maybe I don't know, it might be 3-4 years ago by now that I got citizenship. But before that, I was on a green card that I got through my dad getting his, in the late 70s, I guess it would have been that we first got those, when he decided to come here and race for more than, a few races, which was the original plan. The original plan, we were going to do a couple of races here and then go back to Australia. And as you can tell, we never went back.
Right. So you're telling me you've only been a citizen for a few years?
Yes.
I did not know that. I figured you had gotten that taken care of a long time ago. You probably know more about the government than I do, being born in this country, because I'm amazed at how much people that have to become or want to become a citizen have to know and learn. That's not easy to do. Do you recall that it was difficult?
I did a lot of studying because,
right.
I was shit scared that I wasn't going to pass. That would just, and how embarrassing would that be? But I was actually disappointed in, you study a bunch of different questions. I think I even had a CD that went in my car, and I'd listen to that. And, I had friends continually asking me questions because there's a lot of stuff that I went to school here. So, yeah. I mean, I knew most of the stuff once I was reminded of it.
Right.
And it's one of those things where you always know more than you think you do.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of remembering it. And I didn't want to screw it up. And then I was actually disappointed because they asked me easy questions. You know what I mean? Like, I'd spent a lot of time studying the ones that I thought were difficult, and then they didn't ask me those ones. I mean, the questions, honestly, one of the questions was, what's the ocean off the east coast of the United States? So,
how would you know? Like you said about people in California, they don't think of anything else about the rest of the country. Did you get it wrong, or did you actually know it?
I knew that, and I got it right, because you got to remember I sailed across that sea to come here from Europe.
Well, that's true.
So I was intimately familiar with the Atlantic Ocean, because that's what my dad and I took turns rowing, actually.
I thought you were down in the hold of the ship or something in the what do they call it, the steerage section?
Yeah, I was in the steerage section.
Are all the members of your family U.S. citizens at this point?
No, my parents are not.
Oh.
My younger sister was born here.
Okay.
And my older sister is not. So I'm actually the only one that went through the entire process to gain citizenship.
Well, you're a true American. Good for you. I like that.
A true American who didn't vote.
Well, I'm trying to gloss over that part, but
yeah, thanks a lot. Damn it, that's all I needed. I'm in more trouble than Roger Hayden.
Yeah. Oh man, there's a little bit of trouble. Yeah. Should we talk about it?
We only have a few more minutes, but go ahead.
Well, let me just talk about it real quick, only because I actually interviewed Roger this year, and it was funny. It was before he even announced his retirement, and I knew he was a sportsman and did a lot of fishing and outdoors things. And I knew he hunted as well. And he even told me at the time, he said, I have to be careful about the photos that I show because some people get upset about it. So I think we ran a photo of him fishing, and it was a little fish on the end of a hook. And I'm sure that some people were probably upset about that too. But so as we record this, apparently today, he's hunting. It's hunting season in Kentucky, and, he's retired, and, he has a passion for it. And he posted a picture of a 9-point buck that he got that looks pretty big. And the thing with Roger is, it's not like these crazy shots they show of people that take down an elephant or a big game animal that they only take the animal because of the trophy of it. Roger's not like that at all. I mean, I love the fact that first of all, there's a huge overpopulation of deer in a lot of these states. I mean, there is around me, and they have to have controlled harvesting, they call it. It's controlled hunts, and they have people come in, even in our village I live in. And so Roger, when he gets a deer, he donates 100% of it to shelters there. So he not only helps helps control the population of the deer, but he also, takes the venison from it, and, it feeds a lot of families in need. So, I think it's a pretty honorable thing. I did a little bit of hunting when I was a kid, but I never actually could pull the trigger. I can't handle that, but I do appreciate people that can. And, I will admit that I'm a carnivore, so I just don't want to see what goes into that kind of thing. But I appreciate the fact that he does the right thing and he's a responsible hunter and he enjoys the sport. So I just feel bad that some people are getting on his case about it, and I guess you're always going to have that. But I respect what he's doing personally, and I kind of wanted to just throw that out there for Roger in his defense. So
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad. These days, it's no matter what you're into, there's going to be somebody that thinks it's a bad thing. And
right.
I've never hunted anything in my life. I've probably boxed a few kangaroos or whatever. That's a joke too. Now I'm a non-voting kangaroo fighter. Anyway, but I'm all for people doing what they want to do if they do it responsibly and it's not illegal. And like you said, he doesn't kill animals just for the sake of killing animals. I mean, they use it for food, and like you said, he donates a lot of that to the shelters, so more people are getting fed that ordinarily might not. So yeah, I have no issues with it, but there's always going to be people out there that feel strongly one way or another, and those people are usually the most vocal. So
yeah,
he'll get a little bit of backlash, but knowing him, he handles that sort of thing well, and it'll kind of roll off his back and he'll move on. So
yeah, I think it's typical of anything else. I think it bothers his wife Dana more than it does Roger. So that's always kind of the case with these things, but it's cool. So
yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure she'll throw something up there in his defense. But
right.
I think we're about close to wrapping this thing up. There's still that Yosh ride, the missing Yosh ride without the second rider. I don't know. I don't know how many people at this point are starting to lose interest in it, really, but
I don't know why. I don't understand what's going on. I guess maybe we're more anxious to hear because it is pretty big news. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, they don't really have to make that decision yet, but you think the earlier they do, the better it's going to be for that rider to be integrated into the team and start testing and whatever. But, I'd heard November. It's still fairly early in November, but you'd think any day now we would hear something, don't you think?
Yeah, but honestly, it's gone this long, and really, I don't know if they're struggling with the decision or if they're just waiting with the announcement or where that's gone. But I mean, now they're to the point where, like I think Josh said it last week. It's like time's kind of on their side, and they can sort of do what they want. I think it's going to have to be fairly soon because I know they're going to start testing, and obviously the testing, the off-season testing season is going to be more important for the new rider than it even is for Tony. So I'm sure that's something that's going to get the process started here, because I think they even have tests scheduled for early December. So
yeah, it should be pretty soon. And I know it seems like a lot of other teams may be waiting for them to make their announcement before other people do. I don't, for whatever reason. I mean, some of it might be because maybe these riders are still in the running for that position. So once it's figured out that there's only one that can have it, then maybe these other teams can decide who they're going to have on their teams. Maybe that's part of how that's going to go as well. So we'll see. I'm sure it's something we're going to find out, I would hope, pretty soon. And like you said, time is on their side, but I think us as fans, we're excited to find out who is going to take that amazing seat on a factory team. I mean, that's an incredible job for anybody to have. So it'll be great.
Yeah, it'll be fun to talk about, because obviously there's going to be a lot of people that say they make the wrong decision, right, and a lot of people that say they make the right decision, and some people will be happy, some people won't. But it'll be fun for us to talk about, and yeah, we can. It'll be fun to see what the fans have to say and what their reaction to whoever it is that gets the ride is. And either way, we all get to go race motorcycles next year, and there's not much better than that.
With the 10 round schedule.
with a 10-round schedule. Yep. Exactly right. Yep. So people can look on our website and pay a little more attention to that schedule and look through there and see how those dates work out for them and start making their plans for next year. So we'll wrap this up today, Sean. As always, it was nice chatting with you. To our listeners out there, make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening to Off Track Now. Leave comments. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. Especially if you don't like Sean and like me, I'd like those comments more than any of the rest. Off Track is available virtually everywhere at this point. Podcasting live, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon, Alexa, etc. We're out there. We want you to listen. And again, we'll get some thick skin. You can tell us what you don't like, tell us what you like, and we'll keep doing this. And as I said, we'll try to get probably Chris Orich on here next week, and we can sit down and chat with him. He might be a good guy to give us some insight into choosing riders. Bring us back to the subject of Yoshimura, trying to sort out what they're doing. And obviously one of his main rider, Valentin Bice, is one of the guys who's in the top seat as far as maybe getting that ride. So he'll be fun to talk to, and we can do that. But in the meantime, all of you out there, be safe. Riding motorcycles, bicycles, driving cars,
walking.
Use your head, be safe. Yeah, walking. Yeah. If it's Sean, he's got to be careful just walking.
Well, certainly walking, and I can't chew gum. I mean, I got to put the gum away or there's definitely trouble. So
I'm not even sure. Can you talk and walk? I mean, I know you like to talk a lot.
No, I can't.
Yeah, I thought whenever you are talking, you're kind of stopped.
Yeah, I can't do anything else. It's completely focused on that. So I can barely breathe. Thank goodness that's involuntary. So
yeah, keep that going. Anyhow, Sean, it was nice talking with you, and we'll get together next week. Right. Be safe and talk soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Paul. Take care.
Thank you.